All right, everybody. We've got two very special guests for y'all this week. Returning guest, Tom Peyer of Ahoy Comics, and newbie to the show, but often loved on the show, Stuart Moore of Ahoy Comics. Welcome, guys.
Hey,
Thank you.
thanks for being here. And thanks for Tom for keeping his clutter out of the camera. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, we know Stuart's a collector, that's for sure. No, I'm glad to have you both on the show. We're big fans. Stuart, I'm glad to have you here for the first time. And I guess we'll get it over quick, the paddling, as we call it. But if you want to just give a little insight or just how you got involved with comics, where it all began for you, and you don't have to spend too much time, but if you want to, I don't know.
Well, I've got about 4 origin stories for how I get into comics, so I could probably take up the whole podcast with it, but
Perfect.
I won't.
Tom will love it.
I mean, I always read them. I was always a fan. When I was a kid, I read more DC comics, and when I was in high school, a friend of mine who I'm still friends with sat me down with piles and piles of Marvel books, and it just blew my mind. It just changed me completely. As an adult, I started out as a book editor at St. Martin's Press, and I did various comics related books. I did a book called The Great Comic Book Artist. I did some collections of comic strips and things like that. And then I got a job at DC the stupidest way possible, which was to answer an ad in Publishers Weekly. And
wow.
And
why is it that no two people have the same story of how they got into the industry?
No.
You know what? I think it was Devin Grayson who used to say that's because it's like getting out of prison. Every time you dig a tunnel, they plug it up and you have to dig another one. And I think that's really true. So I started at DC like literally a few months after Tom did.
Okay.
And we became friends, and it was in the editorial group run by Karen Berger that became Vertigo a few years later. So we were in on the start of that.
Okay.
So that's basically it.
Yeah. And you mean like friends with Tom? Did he berate you every day, or?
I really think of us as acquaintances.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think you want to be Tom's friend.
He had this really good idea for this Cats in Space book, so I put up with him.
Well, and I will say though, I had to, as a lot of people do, and as Tom did really too, I had to sort of quit to become a writer, and I have been almost full-time a writer for almost 22 years.
Wow.
Nice. And although I still do things like run operations for Ahoy Comics on the side, things like that.
Yeah, I think a great place to start everything is, I mean, Mike and I have been really excited since the birth of Ahoy Comics. I mean, we were kind of in on the ground floor, especially working with your PR firm and like having you guys on the show, reading your books, all that stuff. And it's kind of shocking me that's 5 years later. So
I can't believe it's been 5 years. Yeah.
How has the first 5 years been? Like, is everything you guys dreamed of, or are you sick of it?
Just sheer hell. It was terrific. We assembled a really good bunch of people who were all fond of each other, and we all do great work. And if we had known, like, it started with 3 of us, me and Hart Steely and Frank Camuso had a meeting in like a coffee shop and decided and resolved to start a comic book company. And honestly, if we'd known how hard it would be, we wouldn't have done it. But it's kind of great that we didn't know and that we did it. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for ignorance.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss, I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's been a tremendous experience, and it's to just interacting with all these creative people and writing again more than I used to, and I've loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been an interesting experience, like, because I've learned to do all kinds of things I've never done before, like dealing with distributors, keeping schedules, stuff like that. I think, Tom, you originally called me and asked me if I wanted to edit The Wrong Earth. And I was like, I don't really want to edit books anymore. And then at the beginning, we had a lot of help from a guy named Sven Larson, who's a VP at Marvel now. who did a lot of our production and marketing right at the very beginning. And when he got the call from the show, as they would say on Bull Durham, when he went back to Marvel, I sort of moved into the operations position, and so I do that in addition to my own books. But yes, the way Ahoy works, as Tom says, is remarkably smooth, and it showed me that there's an incredible talent pool of people in all parts of the comics industry who, for one reason or another, don't care to work for the big companies or have kind of been through there, but really know their stuff and really and are happy and grateful in a lot of cases to work in a place with a lot less red tape, a lot like where you can just get things done. A lot of what happens at Ahoy is just Tom and me getting on the phone, just a lot of it.
Yeah.
And we always figure out if there's a problem, we always figure it out. Like it's easier than you think.
It really is. Sometimes we figure it out really fast. Yeah.
I mean, that's great that you have that like relationship that it kind of worked out that way. I mean, Stuart, you said, I mean, writing and then working with distributors and things like that. Is there ever a moment where you're like, oh shit, like I need to finish this up, or like this isn't going to make it for distributors? Do you ever see like a push pull there for stuff you're working on, or is it like?
Yeah, I mean, I do have some help. We have other good people working in the company, but yes, I do have a back and forth like that. I've been writing Marvel novels the last few years as well. I had one out last spring called Into the Dark Dimension.
Yep.
And that can get a little intense when it's getting near deadline time or if they need revisions. But in general, what I try to do is I try to write in the morning and do the Ahoy work in the afternoon. And the universe doesn't always oblige me, but that's kind of how it works best for me. And I'm a pretty organized person. Sometimes I just have to actually the last few days I've just been doing Ahoy because it's just, there's a whole lot of little stuff happening. But generally that works out pretty well. I can also caffeine myself up in the morning better and get some writing done then.
Yeah, just power through the writing part.
Yeah.
I just because Chris is a big fan here, we gotta talk about the Captain Ginger and how that all came about. Was that just an idea that you had, Cats in Space, or how did that get going?
Captain Ginger is actually the only comic I've ever created for a specific artist, because I had been working with June Brigman on a comic called The 99, which was produced for the overseas market. It was published here in some small ways, but it was primarily produced for the Middle East. And June was not the only artist on it, but she was sort of the primary artist and would design the characters. And at one point we were working on a little side project for them. I think it was a promotional comic for a bank or something. And I wrote in something with a cat sanctuary in it, which they have in some countries over there. And June just drew the hell out of it. She just drew cats everywhere, every one of them with a different personality, cats fighting, cats climbing, cats everywhere. And I thought, there's something here. Wait a minute. And after that was over, I just sort of came up with it. And I went to her and said, do you want to do this? And this was several years before Ahoy. I think we started working on this in 2014. I looked it up recently.
Oh, wow.
And we played around with it for a little while. She did some sample pages. She thought about coloring it. Couldn't really keep up the speed on that. We were going to do it as a Kickstarter. We weren't sure what to do with it. And then Ahoy came along and it just seemed to fit into the line really nicely. So that's pretty much what happened.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it always the idea to have the cats be? Because what I found interesting about this is a lot of times when you see these animals in space things, they're really just people in space, but they want to do animals to make it different. And this, to fly the ship, they have to use the scratching post and stuff so they're actually cats. Is what I found interesting about it. Was that always the idea, or was there some sort of collaboration there where the artist maybe said this would be really fun to do?
The answer is a combination of both of those things.
Mhm.
Like a lot of that was there from the start. The little cozies they have to put on the levers in order to manipulate them with their claws. That was my idea, I think. But June added all sorts of things. She added. She was the one who really started drawing little cats everywhere, like little kittens all over the place. And I had to sort of figure out how that worked, like with the backstory. Like, why are there so many? And there are actually there's some details to that I've never been able to entirely fit into the explanation into the story. But so it was a little bit of both. From the beginning I wanted them to be cats. I think in the first issue I looked at it recently and I went a little. I tried to be probably weak ass way, but I sort of tried to make it a little harder. Like I tried to have them almost swearing a little bit, things like that, because I wanted to establish from the beginning that this was not just a funny animal book, sort of. But then actually, as it went along, that didn't seem to be necessary at all. It was pretty obvious what the characters were, what the series was, and I think it became more of an all ages story, just sort of organically as I went along.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun as a series too. Yeah,
thanks. It's my favorite thing to write. It really is.
it's great.
Is that and
yeah.
we'll definitely, because I know Mike wants to talk about some Wrong Earth, so we'll get to Tom. But is that something that, as long as people are interested in doing it, you would love to do more, or have you found like kind of a conclusion to what you've done with it?
The two issues that came out recently under the title "The Last Feeder" kind of close off the first cycle of the series. I have plans that are not necessarily in comics form for the series, but I'm putting all that together now, and we'll have to see how it all comes together. I own the property with June. I consult with her on everything. And we've also been talking about something else we want to do, a new project, but that's in very early stages too.
Cool.
Yeah, since Chris gave me the nice segue, Tom, I've been the big
professional.
The big Wrong Earth fan since the beginning here, and I think I finally got Chris into it last year, right, Chris? At some point,
yeah, I read the first volume.
Yeah, read the first volume.
Because I end up, even though we get you guys are nice enough for us to review codes, I went and bought a bunch of the trades. So I bought that, My Bad.
Yep.
What was the other one?
Billionaire Island, maybe?
No, High Heaven.
High Heaven.
That's what it was.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and Chris and I talked about, I mean, all the stories you guys are doing, there's usually a sense of like, wow, this is a lot of fun to read. Which we kind of see we're missing in maybe the big two sometimes. But I will say Wrong Earth was always a favorite of mine, and we got the latest couple issues, and now we get the announcement about Dead Ringers, another 5-issue series. So can you talk about that a little bit, Tom? Because that's got me excited. Yep.
You're mixing up, Mike, because there was a new Wrong Earth announced, but Dead Ringers is a separate book.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, Tom. Then lay it out for me.
No, Wrong Earth, Dead Ringers is the next.
Oh, is it? I'm wrong.
Yeah,
okay.
Chris is wrong. Okay. See, I told you I'm the Wrong Earth fan. So yeah, Dead Ringers is the 5-issue series. Yeah. So so give me the lowdown.
Oh, it's Dead Weights is the other book, isn't it?
Yeah. Dead Weights and Dead Ringers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're good.
My bad, everybody.
Yeah. So Wrong Earth, Dead Ringers. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's just turned into this sort of like mad version of Gilligan's Island, where at the beginning of every series somebody else is stuck on another planet somewhere.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like if they got off the island and just kept getting shipwrecked on other islands.
And if it keeps happening, that's fine.
So it's a way to mix up the cast, and we have some people on Earth Alpha now who should be there, which is the campy version of the Earth. Just to backtrack, I'll just give the premise is that there's a particular superhero who is in two different worlds of the multiverse. And in one of them, he's sort of like a campy, old-fashioned Comics Code era hero. And in the other, he's like a stick it to the man kind of ultra-violent post-Comics Code hero. And so in the first rung Earth, they got trapped on each other's Earths. And I'd like to go back and do more stories about that because I left some time in there to it.
That'd be cool.
And that's kind of the purest expression of the book, when they're just trapped on each other's. But now, coming up on Dead Ringers, the people who most of the people who should be on Earth Alpha are back there now, but both Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man are there. There's a couple heroes who shouldn't be there. They're badass Earth Omega heroes who have to. Now, Dragonfly, the Dark Omega guy, really kind of, I think it's subtext that you can see, but he really enjoyed his time on Earth Alpha. Because it was just so much less trouble and so much less pressure. And he had a hard time fitting in at first, but he really learned to love it. And but with Dragonfly Man there kind of calling the shots, he hates it now. And, he just hates his life.
Yeah.
And and we've got a couple heroes just separated out, kind of lost in space. And Lady Dragonfly Man and Night Sting, who are just
Night Sting
variations of variations.
Yeah, I love Night Sting.
And we've got a bad Dragonfly still running around the multiverse from the Night and Day series.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you've done with the series because, you know, you do like the 5 issues and then you're like, okay, maybe we'll get another story. I'm hoping we get another story. But like, if we didn't, I mean, this on its own was just a great thing to have. But, and then I think it was last year we talked to you about how you gave off some one-shots for people to work on within the universe.
Stuart was one of them.
Yeah, Stuart was one of them. And how was that giving it off to, like, I mean, Stuart, you could talk about your story that you wrote, but I mean, was that fun for you to like give the characters, you know, other people to play with those characters?
It was. I mean, a great bunch of writers too.
Yeah.
Stuart, Gail Simone and Mark Russell and
Mark Russell. Yep.
And it was really.
Did Mark Waid do an issue?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, Mark Waid. Yep.
Yeah, he did. He did. His was, in terms of sensibility, I wasn't surprised. His was the closest to what I do. And I love seeing the variations. I mean, Stuart did this Batman '89 thing.
Yeah, that was really fun.
With a villain based on Prince, which was just wonderful.
Yeah, that was a great issue.
Her art was stellar.
Yeah. I love that you laid down so few rules for them, and the one shots wound up very different from each other. Like some of them, like Gail Simone had a lot of fun with just an Archie comics style universe, but Mark Waid's and Mark Russell's were both just sort of within your parameters. Like they were both sort of just wrong Earth stories. Mark Russell's, by the way, I think is one of the darkest things he's ever written. Like it was really
really.
Yeah.
He violated the character too. I mean, he had Dragonfly Man acting that he never would. But I just like, all right, it's Bob Haney time.
And you, I mean, Stuart, you got to play with the characters. So, I mean, that, like you said, the Prince type character was a lot of fun to read, but like, is that the idea you had going into it? Like, I wanted to do something a little bit crazier, a little bit out of what Tom is normally doing with the characters, or?
Yeah. And it was inspired by particularly the first Michael Keaton Batman movie, which had the Prince soundtrack. But it was also inspired by the Prince soundtrack, which has a whole other entire set of stories embedded in it that people have talked about. Like it's really wild stuff. The other thing though I really liked was I wanted to get into Richard Fame, the alter ego of the Dragonflies, in the context of the 1980s when you know, stock market guys were revered, greed is good, all that. And what kind of moral dilemmas would a character like that face in that environment, in that time period? So, and I wound up with a character almost a little bit in between the two characters you have, which I guess chronologically makes sense, but he had a somewhat different set of dilemmas and parameters he was operating in. That sounds boring. It was it was it was fun. There's a lot of shooting and people getting doped up and and things like that.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with it. And Fred Harper drew it. He had a great time with the psychedelic sequence.
Oh yeah. Fred Harper did a great job.
So good at that. He's so good at that.
And I think that I think that's another testament to those characters, and that's the type of book where you can have other people come in and be like, oh man, this would be so much fun to write just an offshoot story about these characters. I mean, you have a multiverse to play with, all these different worlds and different styles. So I think it's awesome when you did that, because it still lends itself to the overall universe. And I thought it was just a nice, and for me, I was like, oh, this is probably, the last we'll ever see of these characters. But now that we got a couple more of the 2 issues and now the 5 issues, I'm pretty excited to see where they're going to go.
We'll keep doing it as long as we can. I mean,
nice.
That's my favorite thing to write.
Awesome.
But and Jamal, I always have to mention how much.
Oh, the art is so good.
Book. I mean, it's like the energy is. You would not believe how much worse it would be without him. Like the ideas he brought in improved it so much.
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, and of course the energy he just brings to the art book is insane.
Yeah, I mean the style and some of those pages are just. I mean, with the first series, that's what really brought me into. I was like, it's a fun story, but that art was just between the 2 worlds. It was just like, man, it really just fits the book. It was
his devotion to it has just been exceptional. I mean, we probably do it more often if he didn't also want to draw other things, which he has a perfect right to do, and he should do.
Right.
And it'll certainly extend the period before he gets bored with us.
Very cool.
Yeah. Cool.
And then I think we have to bring it up. Dead Weights, #1. Chris and I talked about this book on the show when it got announced, but for us, so just the premise here that we always love the idea of like the henchmen and like what the hell they're up to when they're not like on the clock or working for somebody. So where did this come all about?
I always go back to like Venture Brothers.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you watched that.
Yep.
But there's always these henchmen that kind of like, they also have a side life and they talk about it. And they're just people who like collecting a paycheck. And like, but nobody, like Marvel plays with it here and there, but not really. And when this was announced, I was so excited because I'm like, I love this idea of like, who's crazy enough to be like the Joker's henchman? Like, who's crazier, the guy who's the henchman for the Joker or the Joker?
Yeah, right. Like,
you see these like awesome, like AIM headquarters, Advanced Idea Mechanics headquarters. It's this magical looking Kirby building, but you never see any parking. There's like 800 guys in beekeeper outfits out there, but there's no parking lot.
The apartments are underneath.
Yeah.
Deadweights was pitched to us by the writer Tyrone Finch, who's a television writer. We've worked with him before. He's also done work with Humanoids and a few other places. It's pretty much his baby. One of the things I love about it, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying this, is the henchmen have not been the 2 main characters. It's just sort of a buddy comedy, really, and the 2 main characters are not treated very well by either their bosses or the heroes. Like they've kind of been screwed over by everyone. So that's the starting point. They're just 2 guys in the gig economy, really trying to make it work.
I love the idea of a comic book about people who, when things get hard, they quit.
Yeah, we can all relate to that.
Yeah, that's pretty early in life.
Yeah, I have to say, while we're talking about this, Tom himself once wrote a brilliant issue of Batman 66 called "The Joker's Layoff Riot," which was about exactly this. It was the Joker decides to save money. Is that what it is? So he just starts
he's in a bad mood, and he cheers up when he watches business news, and it's all about layoffs and downsizing. He decides to downsize his gang.
Wonderful.
And there's like one gang member left who has to do everything while Joker watches him work.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Yes.
He screws everything up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a side
I
note.
love
I love that story.
Yeah.
There was a formula that they used in the 40s and 50s where Joker would always start out unhappy about something, and then he would see something that would give him an idea.
Yeah.
You know, like there's actually one where he went to a baseball game, like he was pissed at his gang and they weren't getting anything right. So he goes to a baseball game and he realizes gangs could trade henchmen like baseball teams trade players.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole story about that.
There was an actual story about that.
They're up for free agent.
Yeah, it was. I
That's
love that formula where the Joker's just pissed, and then it's an idea.
It almost feels like the editors thinking about like how they hate all their writers and they hate all their artists and they just want to they're gonna leave the office and just go to the baseball game and figure it out themselves.
Yeah. Or swap between people.
that would be a good skit, like a fantasy or like a draft for the henchmen. It's like, all right, Joker, it's your turn.
Yeah. Who do you want?
Drafted by him.
Yeah. Well, he only put up 20 points this week. I'm not going to draft.
I don't know. This guy can barely pick a lock. I don't know. I need someone who can really make that Joker gas.
50s Joker, I would work for.
Yeah. 50s Joker.
I don't know. He gets cranky.
Cranky, but you know he's not going to cut your face off with
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say this current iteration, I want to keep my face on.
Yeah.
I don't need it pulled off. Yeah, I know Chris and I are very excited. It's a 6-issue series, correct? It's in
Deadweights, yeah.
Yep. And you said it's more of like a buddy cop comedy style story of them. Yeah.
Not cops specifically.
No, yeah. I mean, buddy comedy.
Yeah. Almost like a traveling buddy comedy where there are a lot of twists and turns too involving the hero group. So that I don't want to give away, but so it is within that whole world. But yeah, it's basically about these two guys, and they can't get a break. They can't.
Well, it's funny and absurd, and it's also really it's really got a heart. I mean, it's got feeling in there that I think elevates it.
Yep.
And the friction between the two characters, one of them is all in on quitting crime, and the other one's not so sure.
Right. So you have that funny dynamic to play with too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the art too by Sebastian Freeze is it's really good.
It's really nice.
Yeah. The cover where the guys just all beat the crap. It's pretty good. It's like, I got to go into work the next day. What the hell?
Sebastian colors his own work too, and his color sense is gorgeous. Like he's really good with a palette.
Yeah.
And then you guys, I mean, you have so many books coming out. I believe Mike just read what was it, Acid Chimp versus Business Dog.
Yeah. I love that.
I need to jump into Project Cryptid because that's right up my alley. Black Myth coming out now. I know, or is coming out, but I know. I don't expect anyone to announce anything today, but obviously more books are coming. We've talked about kind of your philosophy on doing books, and I'm a big fan of how you guys are doing it. I've put some of these. I hate saying smaller publishers because it sounds derogative, but like I think you understand what I mean when I say that. And keeping your output tight. And just trying to put out quality, and it seems to be what you guys are doing. I mean, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then doing them in seasons. So maybe, I mean, like Mike said, he's always getting a mini series for Wrong Earth, and he gets a new season every year or so. And then something like Dead Weights, like maybe it goes on for 2 or 3 seasons, but maybe it's just one, and we move on to the next thing. Have you guys noticed more people jumping in? Because I really noticed a shift for you guys from the outside looking in. You can tell me if I'm wrong here, but when the Second Coming thing happened, and I know, Tom, we talked about it at the time, so we don't have to dig deep into that, and Mark Russell jumping on board, and it seems like then like Black Myth came, and now we've got Dead Weights, and are more people kind of jumping in being like, man, I would really love to do something with Ahoy?
Oh yeah. And we got Matt Boers writing Justice Warriors.
Yep. Justice Wars. I read Justice Warriors. I completely forgot. Yeah, that's a great series. Yep.
Great stuff there. I love that book.
Yep.
And we have a couple things coming up that are really exciting and we can't tell you about, but they sort of raise the game for us.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I wish I could talk about them because they're great.
It doesn't. I will tease it. It will include our first licensed property, which we've stayed away from so far. This one actually came in through the writer, so it was more interesting to us that way.
Yeah,
that's all I can say about it right now. But it'll be. I think it'll get some attention.
Is it? I don't. Once again, I don't expect you to tell me what it is or announce it or anything. But is it kind of like what happened with Mad Cave and Dick Tracy, where the people who had the IP were like, "We want to make this book," and then got it through with them?
It's not exactly that, but I can't clarify too much.
Okay.
That's
fine.
Yeah, leave it at that. But
it's more like the writer was dying to write this and started to lay the groundwork for us.
And it's a writer we know and have worked with, so it happened very organically that way.
Yep.
And we were lucky that the property owner was interested.
I can't wait to speculate in the next episode, Chris.
Yeah, we're gonna spend a half an hour.
That's our news for no, we won't. But we'll speculate the hell out of it. No,
I don't know.
Stuart, look me in the eyes. Is it Rom?
No.
Yeah,
wait, over here. There it is.
Yeah,
boom.
Yeah, not Rom, Chris. I'm sorry.
When you
Eventually, I'm going to
find
get
out who
around.
it is, I don't know if you'll say, but of course, or what.
Yeah.
Which is better to you?
Yeah.
I'll take either.
As long as they buy the book.
Because I think that's another thing with a lot with, and I hate to keep comparing you, but like I put you in a similar bag as like a Mad Cave, where like when you guys announce something, I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I know what an Ahoy book is really, other than just quality. Like I haven't read a bad Ahoy book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good thing, but
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think quality's a big part of it. And another big part of it is they don't have to be comedies, but they can't be humorless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Always
There's
a sense of fun.
got to be a vein of humor running in it, I think, because that to me is just sheer entertainment.
But
yeah, and I think when you first launched Ahoy, we talked about it, how you wanted it to be humor in some way. And at first it was really just humor books, or books with humor in it. And I think that's one thing that Mike and I have really pushed towards, because we've talked a lot over the years about, as much as we love our, The Dark Knight Returns and these really serious, great books that push the medium, it's also kind of fun just to watch Batman, Joker have a surfing contest every so often. Like
exactly. Yeah. Right. That's what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. I will say I've definitely read more, and not just because of the review stuff, but I have definitely read more Ahoy comics that, like, if it looks like a genre that I won't typically go for, you at least know it's going to be fun. And I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the book right now, but it was like the time traveling grandmother. What was it? Guilt. Yeah, Guilt. That one. That was such a fun story. That was something that like I picked up, and I know we talked about it in the show and stuff, but I picked that up and I was like, yeah, this was just a lot. Like this, the story was wild. It was just a lot of fun. And
great. I'm glad to hear that. Glad to hear that. I loved it too.
Yeah. So, we're just really, our check's in the mail. No, I'm just kidding. But no, we always do say good things about Ahoy. My t-shirt's in the closet. I forgot to wear it for the interview, but it's I can't wait to see what's coming up in the rest of the year with you guys. So looking forward to it for sure.
Yeah.
But and Stuart, I'm so glad you got to be here today for your first time. So hopefully you'll come back and join us again for another time.
As long as I don't have to do the paddle again.
Yeah, not the yeah, that's
Wow.
off air,
Just
folks.
one.
So
Just if you
yeah.
see Mike at a con, just kind of stay away. I
Stay
mean,
away.
yeah.
Is that a general rule or just
It's-
for
yeah, general. Yeah, yeah. it's
Listen, I
usually-
go to a lot of cons with Mike. It's weird. I don't know what's going on, but he's a good guy. I mean, just he just has this weird
pandemic-
thing he does.
Pandemic was a real relief, huh?
It was, yeah.
You should, dude. You should have seen him like itching, like.
Thanks for shaming me on air, Chris. I appreciate it. Appreciate that. Yeah.
That's how you know
Now
we're
it's
friends,
out.
Mike.
Now it's out there. Everybody's gonna avoid me now again. I took those a few years to build myself back up, and here we go. Tom, Stuart, thanks so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to talk with Ahoy.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what's going on next. So
Yeah, before we let you go though, you got all this great stuff coming out. Do you want to share any social media where people can follow you, all that kind of stuff?
I'm Tom Peyer on Blue Sky. Go ahead,
Sky.
Stuart.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Ahoy Comic Mags on Instagram. Ahoy Comic Mags on Twitter X.
Yep.
Ahoy Comics on Instagram, and Comics Ahoy on Facebook. I don't know how all that
I don't
happened.
know what we are on
Yeah, I don't know what.
Facebook.
We do have a Blue Sky too now. I think
Yeah,
it's
we
Ahoy
do.
Comics.
okay, great.
And I'm at I'm Stuart Moore 1 on Facebook and Twitter, and Stuart Moore 01 on Instagram. And I am also on Blue Sky, and I can never remember what it is. I think it's just Stuart Moore or something.
Oh, we're Ahoy Comic Mags on Blue Sky.
Blue Sky, got it.
Okay.
Great.
So yeah, to everybody out there, check out the show notes. I'll have links to Ahoy's website so you can check out all the books that are coming out. They do a great job of telling you what month, what issues are coming out, so you can catch up and check out the back catalog, all that kind of stuff. Because
I should mention too, we also have our website, which is that's comicsahoy.com, and it's usually up to date with everything if I remember to update it. So, but it's in pretty good shape right now.
And that's the website that'll be in the show notes down below. So check that out. Cool. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time. Come chat with us. We really appreciate it. And look forward to the next time we can do it.
Sounds
Thank you,
good.
guys.